How you doing? It's Wednesday. That means mailbag day. Salty. At throwing up an over under and coming straight at Vince before we even got started about whether we'd start before 6:05. Here we are. I think we actually made it when it still said 6 o'clock before it was actually 6:01. So take that, people.
I'm telling you, you said it when we started. It was shock the world time.
That's
we
right.
Just did it. Shocking the world on a Wednesday.
Shock the world, baby. Shock the world. All kinds of stuff floating around out there today. You know, in where we are right now, that Canadian wildfire smoke actually finally made its way down this way. And I don't know about you, I could taste it on my lips earlier.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't notice it from a respiratory oral sense. I'm obviously you could see it visually in the air. So here's a funny story for you. Or maybe it's not funny depending on how you look at it. So, you know, my son plays for the soccer and the football team in the fall. And of course they have their summer workouts and all of these different things. And soccer's 5 times a week and football's 3 times a week. And yesterday, soccer cancels because of the air quality. Of course, football pushes ahead, no problem. So he goes to football practice last night instead of soccer. Then tonight, there's supposed to be soccer, pushed to today from yesterday.
Yeah.
They cancel again. So my son's at football practice again.
You're going to say I was sensing a trend there.
Uh-huh. So football definitely has not canceled either day, but soccer has canceled and been lauded for canceling, by the way, from some of the parentals that are out there.
What does he even do as a kicker? Like, what does he do at summer workouts? Does he lift and stuff like that? You know, when he's with the football team?
Yeah. So they're there for 3 hours from 5 to 6. They lift. So he lifts with them. I asked him the difference and he said that, you know, more weight lifting, like heavy weights. And then soccer is more like reps. So he lifted this morning with soccer, tonight with football. Then from 6 to 8, helmets and shoulder pads, and they do 2 special teams a day. So he participates in both of those, whatever they are. And then the rest of the time, he's off to the side, just kind of doing his own thing with the little kicker group, just like a college. Honestly, you know how all the specialists go off to the side and they kind of do their own thing?
Right.
That's what he does. It's pretty boring, actually.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. If he literally just kind of sat around and played hacky sack all day, or, you know,
essentially,
whatever they do these days.
Yeah, they do their special team for about 20 minutes of the 2-hour practice. So it's really just all about putting your FaceTime in, I guess.
Yeah.
So
like literally he might be, you know, on his FaceTime. Well, it's mailbag day. We got a lot of juicy questions lined up and ready to go already. So we will jump right into them and, of course, bring more questions as we go. Let's just start with Brian Belly. You know,
our buddy.
How does Notre Dame prepare for a more passing-oriented version of the triple option that Navy's new coach is known for? Or are we going to be no, he's not asking if we are. He said, we're going to be stunned in Ireland. Sad to say. I just want to say, Brian, you need a hug. Like, do you have someone to hug you? Like, can someone just, and I don't know. You want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. Because here's the deal. The first part of this is 100% a legit question. I was like, okay, Brian's coming at this thing. I love it. Yeah. This is great.
Yep. I had the Navy writer on a month or so back and wrote a little thing up at Irish Breakdown about how they do have a new head coach, new offensive coordinator.
Yep.
They are adding passing wrinkles to their option
offense.
They're bringing in, they're adding some tight ends. What the tight ends look like this year, as we found out, they're probably going to be converted linebackers, but still there will be tight end in the offense. So it will be a little bit different looking.
So it's the same thing that you do anytime the new coach is taking over. Now, obviously the head coach has nothing to do with what the offense is going to look like. He was the defensive coordinator last year. So, from a scouting standpoint, you can obviously scout for his defense and what they were doing. They were more aggressive defense with him as the defensive coordinator than they have been in the past, as far as, they kind of sat back and allowed things to happen to them in the past. And this defensive coordinator is a little bit more, attacking style dictating, what's going to happen. So from an offensive standpoint, I believe the offensive coordinator came from Youngstown State. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound right? I think that's accurate. Either way, you watch the film of wherever he came from, and that is how you prepare for this game. And then you have to use some intelligence to, okay, well, how does that mesh with what they were doing to what they have now at Navy, what they've been doing, and what does that look like? There's going to be some question marks, obviously, going into the game, but you prepare the best that you can, and you're probably going to be just fine. I mean, there is obviously a substantial difference between Notre Dame and Navy from a player standpoint and all of those things. And you've got the second year of Al Golden going up against the option offense. It's year 3 for Marcus Freeman. They're going to be fine.
Kennesaw State, by the way.
Kennesaw State. I knew it was a state.
I knew it started with a K, but I couldn't remember.
Okay, fair enough.
He was, part of the story. Grant Chestnut is his name, by the way. Yeah, and I mean, look, it's not like they're going to come out and they're going to spread it out, and and they're going to have the athletes, by the way, to all of a sudden dominate Notre Dame. It's going to be a lot of the same thing. Like you said, you look at what Grant Chestnut was doing. You also probably look a little bit at what Air Force has done, because again, Air Force has had the tight ends in the offense in the past, so there's some
a little more spread,
too wrapped up in it, but just to give you an idea, of what they've done. Again, this is like crossing patterns and some slants and things like that. And obviously, you fake the dive to the fullback, there's the chance that they could throw a pass downfield. I'm not saying that it's, the reason they're doing it is to add another element to the offense. So there is going to be another element. I don't think that Navy is just going to come out and all of a sudden be slinging it all over the place and dominate Notre Dame, because now, they're throwing the ball a little bit more, because there's also the part of they have to start recruiting a different kind of quarterback, and they are recruiting a different kind of quarterback. But again, just like with the tight ends, that's not necessarily in place. I know, they do have a younger quarterback who's completely inexperienced, who's a better passer than either of the guys they had last year. And he got the bulk of the reps in the spring, so, but again, you're talking about a completely inexperienced quarterback. So there's as we saw last year, there's a lot that goes with that as well.
And last time I checked, Notre Dame has pretty good corners as well. So is it going to be different? It's going to be slightly different. Yep. No doubt about it. And you've got to be ready. You can't just key on the run, obviously, but run still comes first. You still have to stop the run. So, Ryan says we got dominated by them last year and still won the game. So, at the end of the day, what is your criteria for this game? Winning, number one. And I believe the last time that they were in Ireland, they completely dominated Navy. So,
and they got dominated in domination for a half. It was
the second half was ugly.
Notre Dame dominated the first half. Navy dominated the second half, and it was on both sides of the ball. It wasn't just offense. There were things that needed to be worked out, but I still think that Al Golden, a year of experience, a lot. He gained a lot of experience coming back to the NFL. It's not like Al Golden saw the triple option in those 6 or 8 years he was in the NFL, so it was a learning experience for him as well. And now we'll find out if he can kind of put that into practical use, seeing Navy for the second time. I think, he's a very smart guy. I think he'll be able to figure some things out. So
I have a hard time saying one team dominated another team and still lost the game. This isn't soccer. Like soccer, that happens all the time, right? Football's a little different. You don't get dominated and then that team that gets dominated wins the game. That just doesn't happen.
The bigger concern for me is all the 3 and outs the offense had in the second half.
Absolutely. And do we really think with the offense,
the Notre Dame offense?
Yeah, right. I know exactly what you're saying. Do we really think the offense that Notre Dame is taking into this game is going to be 3 and out crazy in the second half? No, I'm sorry. And if it is, then we're going back to the drawing board with everything that we thought that this team was going to be about this season. I'll be real honest with you. Like that would be, very disturbing. The post-game show after that kind of a scenario, they may as well have lost.
Right. Good question from Sean Stewart. Visiting Notre Dame as a fan for a game, is it a week-long experience or a weekend thing?
Well, I guess it depends on who you are. I would say it's a weekend thing, and I would say that weekend starts on Friday. If you can be there all day Friday and then obviously all day Saturday, and if you're Catholic, you go to mass on Sunday, that kind of a thing. I would say it's a weekend thing. During the week is not really, there's really nothing going on Monday through Thursday.
It's amazing how little does go on during the week. Really,
it's just a normal work week.
Friday is when things start buzzing, because then you do, especially if it's a big game, but in any game, you're going to start to see more traffic on campus and people milling around, and the bars start to fill up, the restaurants start to fill up, and all that different kind of stuff. And you
get the pep rally on Friday. And,
you get there late Friday afternoon, you're fine.
Yeah.
And then do your thing all day on campus, tailgating, walking around on campus, whatever you want. You'll experience the whole thing. Just make sure you go down, to like the grotto and again, walk through campus and go over to the Knights of Columbus, get yourself a steak sandwich and those kind of things.
Well, a lot of the touristy things, that you want to walk to and be at, there's going to be less people on campus on Friday than there is on Saturday. And so it's a good time to get some of those things out of the way, but you definitely want to walk through campus on Saturday and just kind of soak it all up and do the whole thing and smell all the smells and hear all the sounds and, see the band play on the steps and, all of those different things. I mean, those are all things.
Like the biggest thing you're going to experience if it's during the week is probably around 7 o'clock, maybe a little after 7 o'clock, you'll hear the band practicing in the parking lot. And that kind of stuff,
well, they're not in the parking lot anymore. They go to on the north side of campus. They
go up by the Steppen Center up there.
Yeah, all of the turf fields up there. That was actually donated by band people, so it was meant for the band. Believe it or not.
Okay. So it's been a while because I've been either doing a live radio show or doing this show, so I haven't been over there for those media availabilities in the nighttime like I used to.
Right.
Yeah. But you will experience that. That's the closest thing to game week experience is hearing the band practice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Salty, what's your choice for breakout player from the 2023? That's the incoming freshman class for offense and defense. One each side. FYI, Brian made a great choice and he's correct. So I don't know what Brian's choice is.
Well,
I've got a feeling offensively what it probably is.
I'm sure that's what he was referring to. Which, I mean, that would be by far the most obvious because I think he's probably going to get the most playing time and have the biggest opportunity to make the biggest splash. So I'll take Greathouse on offense as well, because
I'll go that way
if you pick anybody else, the only other one, maybe one of the other receivers, maybe a running back, but
I was going to say like Jeremiah Love,
right?
But there's so much there in front of him. Like what kind of dent is he going to make, especially early on, so.
And exactly. Now, defense is even harder because I don't know that there's a clear path to any of the defenders on the field.
It's a lot. And, look, who saw a year ago at this time, Benjamin Morrison was just kind of starting to make a name for himself during summer workouts.
Absolutely.
Nobody saw that kind of
whispers
coming. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like
whispers. I would go maybe with Jaden Osbury would be, and I'm really just kind of taking a stab at it because, we're going to talk about Marcus Freeman and wanting to get younger players on the field more in rapid fire, but there's a young player with some talent, obviously. So it's really just kind of throwing a dart at the board, I think, with the defense, just because we don't have a whole lot to go on. Right.
Yeah. I mean,
Osbury made a couple plays in the spring game and had a good spring. So,
yeah, I mean, Jaden Osbury is obviously a great one to pick. I mean, do you go with one of the safeties, Minich, Schuler? Do they have a chance to jump over somebody in the depth chart? Is that possible? Maybe. I know Christian Gray has kind of been a sexy choice for some people. maybe he can, but that's a pretty loaded depth chart at corner too. So just to be different, I'll say Christian Gray.
Okay.
Just to be different.
I like that one too. That's a good one.
Just to be different.
Yep. Maybe chance in the secondary. Tommy Guns, pre-camp expectations for the transfer class not named Hartman. I'll ask again to see if they've changed it all in the last week or so leading up to Navy Week.
So he's gonna put a pin in this one.
Gonna quiz us
and ask it again. So I think the obvious one that everybody's going to be looking at, right, is Thomas Harper and Antonio Carter, right? Those are the two.
Those would be the two at the top of my list. Yeah.
Those are the two at the top, right?
Expectations. Yeah.
Coming in, the safety position, instant gratification, if you will, right? With an opportunity to make a name for themselves right away. I think those are the two. I mean, Thomas Harper is pretty much going to be the nickel. Isn't that what we've talked about, right? Correct. Antonio Carter, where does he kind of fall on the depth chart? I mean, my expectations is that Thomas Harper is the starting nickel. Like, that's my expectation.
Right.
Antonio Carter, I don't know that he's going to start. I think that he'll have an opportunity, right? If he's top 4 of the safeties, and I'm obviously combining the 2 spots, right? So that's 2 starters, 2 backups. If he's top 4, he's going to play a lot. And I would say that my expectation is that he's top 4. I don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility, right?
And I just like the versatility both of those guys, I think, can provide in the secondary, because I think Carter could also play some nickel. Harper, as you said, we expect to be the starting nickel. And I just think because you've got 2 really experienced guys who can play multiple positions, it's going to potentially allow them, to do a lot of different things, facing Ohio State and USC and those kind of teams who are going to throw it a bit more. I think that I think they give you a lot of upside in those kind of games.
Yep. And I also, you asked about the transfer class, right? I think Spencer Schrader is going to end up being the starting kicker,
right,
for Notre Dame, and that's a pretty big impact if you're the starting kicker at the University of Notre Dame. So I would say that he's probably going to start. And I don't know much about Brian Dowd. He's the punter that came in. I believe Krim. Krim is the guy that came in, right? He's the punter that came in, Ben Krim. I don't know much about him. You know what I mean? Like, Bryce McPherson came in. He's going to be a sophomore. It's his second year, and he got hurt. Remember last year, he was going to be like the kickoff specialist as a freshman, as a true freshman. He's got a big leg, but then they bring in a transfer punter. And it's like, oh, okay, maybe you're not as high on Bryce McPherson as we thought. So, like, I don't know what the punting situation is going to be like. So I'm confident that Spencer Schrader is going to start at kicker and the 2 safeties. And I don't know what to expect from the punters. And I think that's everybody, right?
Devin Ford, the running back from Penn State.
Oh, yeah.
Curious to see what he, where he fits in, because, they would have had 4 running backs after the Diggs transfer, but they get him. And so now they're back to 5 with Jeremiah Love included in there as well. There's just so much talent in that room. I'll be, again, just curious to see sort of what situation, he provides. Is he a change of pace type running back? Does he become, one of the primary running backs? Because again, you've got Jadarian Price coming back in there, who we've talked about it. Of course, you've got Audric Estime. So, really highly regarded coming out of high school. Let's see what they get. I just don't know what that role is right now, having not seen any of the, of him during the spring. And then Javonte Jean-Baptiste is the other one. I can't remember if you mentioned him or not.
Nope, I sure didn't. From Ohio
I think
State.
He's going to give them a really good, strong presence on that, kind of strong side defensive end. I don't know what kind of sack totals he's going to put up, just because, again, another highly recruited guy, but didn't necessarily make a big dent in his time at Ohio State. But I think he's going to be a solid, at the very least, a solid producer for them, set the edge, all those different kind of things.
Yep. No, I actually forgot about Baptiste. I mean, he's going to start, right? I mean, he's going to be a starter. He has to be a starter. They need a pass rush out of that position. and he's the most likely guy to give them that. So my expectations are pretty high for him, if I'm being honest. So when Tommy Guns asked this question again, I really hope that I have good things to say about Jean Baptiste for sure.
I agree. Let me see. Throw this up there from Tyler. Thank you for the super chat. He says, give me your top 3 college football head coaches that you can't stand and why.
Ooh, we're going down the petty train. I'm usually the conductor of that.
Oh, we're just putting BK at the top of the list.
I can't stand him right now. And towards the end of his tenure at Notre Dame, he was at the top of that list too. So, which I didn't really say out loud a whole lot because he was the coach of the team that I followed, obviously. But yeah, he's right up there, man. Pat Narduzzi is probably up there.
Thinking along the same lines. I can't stand him. I just, the only sort of reasonable gripe that I've ever heard him make was the whole Jordan Addison deal with what happened last year, with Addison, talk about getting poached, from Pittsburgh to USC. And, with like, there was contact made, obviously there's this talk going on, and, but otherwise Narduzzi just always, and he, always complains about Notre Dame.
Him and Dracovic are a pretty nice match.
They are.
That's going to be something else this year.
I know.
Oh man, the Notre Dame week when they play, or with the Pittsburgh week for Notre Dame week for Pitt. That's going to be how many soundbite it's going to be a rapid fire explosion that week. You're going to have so much material.
Can't wait.
Let's see, who else would I put on that? Jimbo Fisher annoys the crap out of me. If I'm being honest,
you read my mind on all 3. We're totally in sync.
Oh,
I'm not a huge, Nick Saban obviously gets results, but I'm not a fan of like some of this recent whining about, it's like, look, you've got all these national championships. You had 2 losses. Don't tell me that you needed to be in the playoff. You're going to have your opportunity next year when the playoff field expands to 12. You're going to, like, if Alabama misses the playoff field once they expand to 12, I mean, stop the world, you don't need to complain. Just some of this little petty stuff that, again, like that Nick Saban has started complaining, and like last year it was the NIL stuff about, it's going to be so unfair to Alabama, all this, it's like,
right. And yet
I think Alabama's rallied a little bit to figure out NIL.
Yeah. I think they're doing okay. And Jim Harbaugh is right up there. I mean, he annoys me. He has kind of gone off the deep end. I think I've said it before on this show or someplace. I used to like Jim Harbaugh a lot when he was the coach at Stanford, and we would have the opportunity to talk to the visiting head coach. We'd all just sit in the same room after a game. The visiting head coach would come in first, then the Notre Dame head coach. You'd get to talk to both. They haven't done that for a while. They have separate places. You got to kind of choose who you want to talk to, Notre Dame people or the visiting people. I don't really like that, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
I used to enjoy listening to him talk. I would look forward to seeing him come in and talk after games. And even when he was with the 49ers, I was a fan. Ever since he got to Michigan, man,
I don't like the hiding the depth charts and the, I'm trying to play coy, like, ooh, I'm cloak and dagger, hiding something from the media and all this different stuff. And I'm going to talk to you, but I'm not going to answer your questions and all that kind of stuff. It's worn a little bit thin.
His shtick has definitely worn thin for me, for sure.
There was one that I was just looking at here. Where'd it go?
Oh, I will. I do want to. Okay. Irish Chi-Town says BK Prime and Jimbo. I like Deion Sanders, but I have a feeling by the end of the year,
probably
to no fault of his own, I'm going to be annoyed with him just because
a lot of Deion overkill.
It's going to be, it really is. The first couple of weekends are going to be rough because there's going to be a lot of prime out there, man, and the product on the field is not going to live up to it.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got a couple different apparel questions. We'll go ahead and get them in here together. Salty asks, Under Armour versus Nike. Who should Notre Dame pick for their next apparel deal? What conditions must the partner meet? And along with that, Marcel, does the new AD in waiting have any say on the new apparel deal?
So obviously we are not privy to the negotiations, so that's obvious. So this is an opinion, but the way I understood how the succession program is going to work with the athletic director. It said July 1st, but then in an interview that I read with Jack Swarbrick and I believe with Tim Priester, he said, well, he's going to probably come in the second week of July, that kind of a thing. And we're hearing the apparel deal is going to be announced in July. So I think we can deduce that the hay is in the barn on that one, and the new AD isn't going to have anything to say about it because he wasn't here, That's just the way it goes. These things get negotiated ahead of time. Just like the TV deal is going to be negotiated ahead of time, the apparel deal is going to be negotiated ahead of time. I don't put that as a negative on Jack Swarbrick. It was time to negotiate that deal, so he did it. I mean, so no, I don't think he's going to have anything to do with it. Do you agree?
Yeah. I would tend to agree. He might get a little, at least he might be at least in on the conversations now, how much actual influence he has over it. Yeah, I would agree, because this was a process that's been, as you said, it's been going on for a while. In terms of Nike or Under Armour, and I know that, there's a lot of stuff bouncing around out there, what kind of things would you want to be included? I've said before NIL, and I saw somebody on the boards today, say like every Notre Dame football player, like whoever they do this next deal with, whether it's, TV or the apparel provider, that, like they were like, I think it was specific to the apparel provider, that like they were saying that each player, each scholarship player on the football roster should get like $100,000 per year, as part of an NIL deal. And
it's a lot.
I mean, that is a lot of money. From what I understand, every football player, again, scholarship football player, and the basketball players as well, have some kind of NIL deal with Under Armour right now. Now, I don't know what the dollar amount is, but I think that it is you with where NIL is right now, you have to include something NIL related. And since you're doing a new deal, you probably do, whatever they're getting right now, you probably ask for somewhere around.
I'm sure that's part of
they're
it.
Getting right now, since NIL wasn't part of this initial contract. So
right.
You definitely have to include some. And again, from what I understand, what I've been told, they already, every football player and men's and women's basketball player has some kind of NIL. The ones who want it anyway, I guess. I put a little asterisk by that, because I understand there's at least one basketball player who does not. But that is because of
other things that they have going on.
Right. Because they have agents now, and was advised not to, by the agent, that kind of thing. But the ones who want it already have it. And I think that you definitely have to include that.
It definitely has to be part of the conversation. And what do you need? I want my people, from an NIL standpoint, I suppose. I want them in the catalog. I want internship, possibilities. And that could be something that's going on right now. But I would want that in there, an opportunity for student athletes to intern at whatever place it is. Do I need to be the highest paid university under that moniker? No, I don't. Like, that's not something that I need to have happen. But if I make a phone call and I need something, that needs to be answered like now. You know what I mean? Like that has to happen. And Notre Dame would have to be a priority. They don't have to be the priority, but they need to be a priority. And you know what? You're Notre Dame. You can ask for that. And I think that that's legitimate, Yeah. And then, from a money standpoint, it has to be competitive with the upper echelon teams in the school, or in the country. It has to be competitive. I mean, not taking a hometown discount from Under Armour. I can tell you that right now. You need to be competitive with the other deals that are out there. Whether it's Nike or Adidas or whoever, you need to be competitive. We're not, just because we've had, I'm saying we as if I'm at Notre Dame, just because we've been partners with you up to this point, that doesn't, there's no hometown discount. Like, you need to be competitive with everybody else.
I concur on all of that. There's all this talk that started floating around out there today that this Under Armour deal is imminent, and
it's hilarious. Like,
what's nothing concrete?
Yeah,
any of us have been able to dig up. Yeah,
we need to do an experiment sometime, and you and I just need to put something ridiculous out there and see if it catches.
See if it comes back to us.
Yeah, see if it catches some traction out there.
Mr. 2.0, fill in the blank. Notre Dame sticking with Under Armour would be the most Notre Dame thing since blank.
Oh man.
Man, that's a really good question, but
because I'm trying to like. It's the most Notre Dame thing since.
I'll just say from my perspective, since building a press box and making the media stare into the sun all season.
I was gonna say it's the most Notre Dame thing since canceling summer camps 2 years in a row after COVID, when no one else was canceling summer camps.
Yes,
obviously that's personal, but still.
Here's an interesting one. Josh, if you could coach one of the sports at Notre Dame, which sport would it be?
I love this question. And, from a money standpoint, it would be football. But from just a pure love of the game, I would want to be the baseball coach. I would.
I agree. I remember back in college when I didn't know exactly what I was doing before Notre Dame got rid of wrestling. I thought maybe, hey, I'll start coaching in high school, and maybe I could be like an assistant wrestling coach at Notre Dame.
That'd be awesome.
And then they got rid of wrestling, So, but definitely would be baseball.
Yeah, that's no doubt. It'd be baseball all the way for me.
Yeah, I remember. It was when I think it was Schrag's first year here. When they did the blue gold fall game, they started doing like the celebrity base coaches and for the blue gold series. Did you do a game?
You and I did it.
Did we do the same game?
Maybe. I did it once. I know I did, and it was super awkward, but it was so much fun.
I know. And I remember one of the players, this is when the late Jeff Jeffers was still there, and he did like I think we did do the same game, and then Jeffers had done the day before, and one of the pitchers was like, "Man, Stiers, you look a lot better than Jeffers did in those baseball pants." Remember they had us put on like the whole baseball uniform and everything.
So awesome! I really enjoyed that. Like that was a lot of fun. But like they come over to first base, and it's like I didn't really know what to do, because I don't know these guys at all.
Yeah, I know.
It was, I don't know, and
you're the first base coach, so it's like there's not a lot to do as the first base coach anyway. So
good job, But yeah, that was pretty surreal. And then my son got to be the bat boy at a Notre Dame versus, I don't remember what they were, Silverhawks, whatever they were at the time.
Okay.
Actually, I think they were the South Bend Cubs, but that was awesome because it was on the Notre Dame side, and of course he was like 8, so I had to hang in the dugout with him the whole time. So, you got to fly? What do you got going on there?
No, I was going to say, I was looking around. I've got all these different pictures on the wall.
Oh,
that game that you and the game that we broadcast at what was then Guaranteed Rate, Notre Dame, Northern Illinois. Jesse was a bat boy in that game, and I've got a picture of like.
Was he really? How do I not remember that?
Well, because he was down on the field and we were up in the press box. So
good point.
Yeah,
good point.
Yep. He got to be the bat boy at that game, so that was kind of cool too. So. Anthony with the super chat. Thanks for the show. Thank you, Anthony. We always appreciate it. Let me see. I'm having a hard time with my super chat clicker here. Mr. 2.0, over under 1,200 rushing yards for Audric.
He was he at 1,000 last year or just at 1,000 last year?
Just under 1,000.
Just under.
Yeah, the net anyway. He may have gone over like with the
Gotcha.
With his total, but with losses, he was in the 9 something. Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be the bell cow back. He was a guy that they waited to give him the ball till the second half a lot in the season, and then he would just run people over, which was awesome. I'm interested to see how things go, but he's going to be the number 1 back. I think he's going to get more carries, but I'm going to say under just because they've got a lot of talent in that backfield. And I think that they're going to spread the wealth out a little bit. And I also think that there's going to be some blowouts where he's not going to be playing in the fourth
You
quarter.
just sit him. You don't let him take the hits. Yeah.
Nope. So I'm going to say under, but not because he wasn't productive. You know what I mean? Like, he's still going to have a very productive season. I just don't know that he gets to that number.
Yeah, I think he's going to get 1,000, but I don't think he's going to get to 12 just because of that. Because there's just too much talent in that room, and they're going to use it all as much as possible. So, that's my only reason. Exactly what you said. Chi-Town, which Notre Dame assistants or coordinator do you see getting promoted next if Notre Dame has back-to-back playoff appearances?
If they have back-to-back playoff
now,
appearances?
when you say promoted, are you talking about like a current position coach at Notre Dame might leave to become a coordinator someplace else?
I think that and or in-house. I mean, either one. Because I think if that happens, Al Golden is out the door. He'll probably become a defensive coordinator in the NFL, which I would look at as a promotion. And then I think Mike Mickens would get promoted. He's destined to be a defensive coordinator, I think. I think he gets promoted here pretty quick. I also think Dylan McCullough is probably on the cusp of a coordinator's job at some point. So you're going to see some turnover, especially if Notre Dame goes to back-to-back playoffs. I mean, you're going to see.
It's probably going to happen this year. You know, if they have a really good year this year, you're going to, because I mean, just look at what happened this past season, and it was an above average season, not an average season, but above average, but still.
He said every single coach had an interview or at least got talked to by an NFL team or whatever. Like, that's saying something after 9-4. Can you imagine if they go 11-1 or, 11-2, whatever the case may be? Like, there's going to be some turnover for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
It's how it works, man.
Yeah. I think the defense performs. Al Golden is at the top of the list. And then the guys that you mentioned, whether it's Chancey Stuckey, Dylan McCullough, O'Leary, there was some interest with him. One of the questions would be if Al Golden gets it, like, does Mike Mickens get promoted
right now
to defensive coordinator? I would go that direction.
I would too, because he's going to get some, especially back-to-back seasons with Benjamin Morrison, right? You've got Sauce Gardner as your pupil, right? You've got, he at least went out and recruited him, that whole thing. Then you've got a chance for Cam Hart to get drafted, right? So you're going to have quite the track record if you're Mike Mickens. He's going to get offers after this year. There's no doubt in my mind. What is Notre Dame going to do to keep him in-house?
Right.
So I think the best thing, if you're just looking at Mike Mickens individually, right, you either make him a co-coordinator if Al Golden sticks around, or if Al Golden goes off to greener pastures someplace else, then you promote him to DC.
I concur. There we go. Super chat from Air Pro K. Woo! Thank you very much. What's up, fellas? Do you guys think Notre Dame lands Lambert?
I think it sounds pretty good based on everything that I hear from Brian and Ryan. Unless something's changed over the last day or two, I feel pretty good about it. He doesn't have a commitment date, does he? I haven't seen that. But yeah, I feel pretty good about it, honestly.
Yeah, again, Vince and I are not the recruit nicks, and so we rely predominantly on what we hear from Ryan and Brian, and things are sounding good. So
yeah,
I'll take their word for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Chi-Town wants to know if Dylan kicks and punts.
Both, all of the above. Yep. So when you're in high school, you got to do everything. So interestingly enough, of the three things that you can do as a kicker in football, right? Punting, kicking, and kicking off, right? The thing he likes the least is kicking off, which you wouldn't think. Yeah, he doesn't like kicking off. Yeah, he says it's a different way you approach the ball, obviously, different way you kick the ball. He's like, he doesn't like doing three different styles of kicking all in one game. It's like, all right, wuss, like step up.
Yeah, I mean, it's like in high school.
Yeah,
it's usually, like you said, you do all of it. If you're a kicker, hey, get the soccer guy because now he's going to do everything.
Yep. No, absolutely.
I could see where where, you're doing all three, where it would kind of, like your timing especially could get thrown off, and just the way you swing your leg and all that kind of stuff.
And the biggest issue, I use that in quotes because it's my son, but he says the biggest issue is going straight from kicking an extra point to kicking off, because those are two very different ways of kicking, and it's like back to back. So whatever. Still think he's a wuss.
Josh wants to know who we think the safety starters are going to be.
As of right now, it's Xavier Watts and Henderson. I think that's who I would
take him.
DJ Brown probably is. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The only lock is Xavier Watts, in my opinion. I mean, he's a lock.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I'll go with Carter, but again, we haven't seen training camp.
Right.
About a month or so away from that, so we'll see what happens.
I like it. We didn't agree.
Kind of taking shots at. I mean, we haven't,
Love it.
Again, we haven't seen some of these guys, but they're bringing these transfers in for a reason. So,
you're right. Absolutely.
Thanks for the super chat, Tyler Evans. He says, let's say Notre Dame wins the national championship in 2025 or 26. What would change from the media standpoint and college football standpoint?
So like the national, like what people nationally think of Notre Dame, I'm guessing is where he's going with this. If they win one national championship, it's going to be, the talking heads that don't like Notre Dame, that's a one-off. There's no way they can sustain this. It's, an LSU situation, or it's whatever, right? They'll come up with a reason why one is enough, right? Or one is why they only got one, right? That's what's going to happen. You're going to see some people be more on the Notre Dame bandwagon, obviously, if they win a national championship, but you're still going to get your detractors out there. They're going to say it's a one-off. There's no doubt about it.
But I would not care, if I'm a Notre Dame fan, I would not care what anyone says.
Nope.
To just win a national championship. I do think Marcus Freeman is already a bit of a media darling. Like he is still well liked and well respected, and he's well talked about for the most part. We haven't seen a lot of negative stuff come his way yet. There's still a lot of positive sheen on Marcus Freeman, and I think that he becomes I think the media embraces him even more. I think that there will be a ton of that. I think so. From that aspect,
that's a good point.
You'll see a lot of really good Notre Dame vibes. Because of Marcus Freeman.
Marcus Freeman is going to be everybody's like media darling after that. I mean, he kind of already is to a degree, right? But if he wins a national championship, are you kidding me? Like, they'll have a documentary just on him posing for the statue. Like it would be out of this world, the Marcus Freeman media storm that would happen, and deservedly so. He would deserve it at that point, because he did what many people, Brian Kelly included, thought couldn't be done.
Correctamundo. From ND Cheat Sheet, this is an interesting one. Which would you choose? Notre Dame only wins one championship and all your other favorite teams never win one again, or your other teams win multiple championships, but Notre Dame never wins one again. Man,
that's easy for me. That's an easy one. It would be Notre Dame wins a championship. Yes, there's been one in my lifetime, but there's only been one in my lifetime, and I don't remember it. Okay. So I want Notre Dame to win a national championship for many reasons. Number one, I'm a huge fan, and it would be unbelievable. It would be unbelievable. Number two, I would be able to see it happen live and in person because of my job. And number three, I would make more money as well. Like, I made that number three, and it's number three.
So you have a contract stipulation that you make more money if Notre Dame wins it all? Is that?
No, I'm saying we would become more popular. Like, Irish Breakdown would be bigger and better, and consequently, you and I would make more money.
When I first saw this, I went, "There's no way that I can answer this." But when I sit back and think about it, one, I've been fortunate to experience, even though it's been a long time, a Notre Dame national championship in my lifetime. Dallas Cowboys,
Sure.
multiple not national championships, but Super Bowls in my lifetime. Kansas City Royals, multiple World Series.
Yeah, that's
Red
true.
Sox, Cubs, teams that I all favor as well. So they've all won multiple championships already in my lifetime. Now I'd be sticking Jesse with the Dallas Cowboys never get to we probably need to ask him this question on Friday, actually. But you're absolutely right. I think I've got to take the Notre Dame as the answer because again, all the other teams that I pulled for, with the exception of the Cubs, have won multiple championships in my lifetime.
That's true. But you know what? As a Cubs fan, that one was
so
sweet.
For the reason you said, I wanted this job, because I was such a Notre Dame fan. And it's 35 years now since they've actually won their last championship. I've got to go for Notre Dame.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. I want it so bad. I want it so bad. I can taste it. And my other teams, I mean, if we're going to go down that road, right? The Cubs, they won theirs in 2016. I feel like I can live off that one for the rest of my life. I know that's crazy and I've got a lot of life left to live, but man, I sucked every ounce of awesomeness out of that season. You know what I mean? It felt so good. So that was great. And if the Bears win the Super Bowl, that'd be great. I'm not as diehard of an NFL fan as I am a Notre Dame fan. You know what I mean? Right. I would be cheering like crazy for the Bears, but I could do without it. It's okay. Cubs and Notre Dame, those are my diehards. And so Notre Dame needs to get one for me.
I'd be interested. Do you think we would even see a parade if Notre Dame wins it all? All these places, have parades and stuff like that
in January.
Right. It'd be January, but still, it's
you could do
Super Bowl winners in February have parades.
Is that a college thing? Do they do that? It'd be cool. It's cool.
I know when Kansas won the basketball championship 2 years ago, they did a parade in downtown Lawrence. So I don't know that every place does, but I think a lot of places do parades.
Look, this is a college town, right? I think we can all agree on that. I think that would be well received. I really do. And I think it would also be a destination situation for a lot of people. They would drive in to be a part of that.
Salty wants to know, Vince, do you have the bell?
I don't. I was at school today too, and I completely forgot about it.
I actually thought about going on to Amazon and ordering my own bell.
No, it's like we both need one since we're not in the same place.
I know.
I need to remember it tomorrow. I need to remember it.
All right. There's some other good questions that aren't all necessarily Notre Dame related that I've had queued up here. I'm going to try to work at least a couple into rapid fire. And if we don't get them in this rapid fire, we'll get them on the Friday rapid fire show because there's some, again, they're interesting and they're good questions, but not necessarily Notre Dame. And there's some, big Notre Dame stuff that we still want to get to in rapid fire today. So with that, Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
If I had the bell, I'd be ringing it. Bing, 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 bing.
All righty then. Let me get to my questions here.
See, I know. I'm ready.
I wasn't ready. So Marcus Freeman told Brian Driscoll he wants to get young, talented players who lack experience on the field this season. Something, we and fans and everyone have been clamoring for a while. So here are a couple quotes that Brian had from Marcus Freeman. Quote, "That's going to be my challenge to the coaches. I want to make sure we're developing these guys that might not be the first ones that go out there, but we need to get them game experience. This year, you can mandate it early in the season saying, listen, we're going to roll guys. We're going to script it out that guys are going to be in the game. I've been a position coach where it's like, we'll fill it out when we get him in when it's right. You don't get them in. No, we have to script it out and hold ourselves as coaches to be accountable. So when we're going to get them in the games," end quote. So Vince, what is getting these guys in? What does it look like to you?
Well, I love the fact that he is at least aware of the fact that in his first year, it was, I need the best guys on the field at all times. And we just need to, win each game and blah, 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 blah. Right. Because from a coach's standpoint, when it's off season, right? And you're thinking about the season, you're like, yeah, man, I got to get these young guys in. But when it's nut cutting time and you're in a game and you want to win, you've got your best on the field, right? And so you do have to be very deliberate about getting young guys in the game. And football is obviously different than baseball, right? But in football, you can give a guy a series, right? Like, hey, you're going to get the 3rd series. Maybe you're going to get the 9th series or something along those lines. You can't put in a bunch of young guys all at the same time. Right. You have to piece it together.
We saw Marcus Freeman do that a couple of years ago. And that, when he was defensive coordinator. And that was when a lot of the big, offensive plays for the other team tended to happen, it seemed like.
That's
when
fair.
they threw a bunch of young guys out there together.
And you have to be careful of it.
Right.
But you also have to be very deliberate about it, because once the whistle blows and you're between the white lines, you're not thinking about, getting other guys in the game unless you have it written down in front of you. And that's the plan for the game, right?
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Okay, well, you've got the plan, but if the game isn't going the way you want it to go, do you stick to that plan or not?
Right. And that's like, we've both coached. We both, football, baseball, predominant, like baseball is where most of my experience was. I had a kid, real fast kid, was not a great bat though. And, I would have liked, if he was going to hit, can you get a bunt down here and there and maybe leg it out? Or, he was an outfielder as well. And he was probably the 5th or 6th outfielder in terms of hitting ability.
Right.
So, but he's got all this speed. So what role can I find for him? Perfect world. You're a pinch runner. I'm going to put you at first base because you got all this speed. Now you're going to steal bases for me. Like if my big first baseman gets on, I'm going to put you on. You're going to steal bases. Well, the problem was he didn't know the signs. He could never remember the signs. And I would stand there giving him the steal sign
over and over. Oh, it's so frustrating.
Go. And so
steal.
Now you eliminate that job from him. Right. But so he ended up like he was fast. He was still a really good outfielder. So it went to like, that is what I can trust you with the most. Mm-hmm. And, so like that to me is, you eliminate, you obviously want to bring all these guys along and, you want them to know as much as possible, but it also has to boil down to what is the thing that I can minimally trust you to do your job, and not have to worry, about some huge breakdown. And I think that that's what you've got to, do with these guys, whether it's, like a pass rush situation where you can just put the guy in and go, this is the situation you're going to be in. Go after the quarterback as hard as you can. Or we're going to put you out here. You're going to run a go route, or we're going to put you in here. You're going to run a deep post, regardless of anything, or like if it's a guy in the secondary whom, like maybe he's not necessarily comfortable running some zone stuff. It's like, okay, lock on your man, man to man, you're going to be on whatever whatever the minimal thing is. I think that's your starting point. Whatever the minimal thing is, you can trust them to do, and again, based on some situations. But just like you said, I don't want a bunch of young, inexperienced guys out there together. It's like, you have one, and then you've got a bunch of veterans around him, because then they can always ask the veterans as well, like what's going on? What am I doing? That kind of thing. Yep. So it's whatever I think the minimal thing that you can trust them to do is your starting point. And then as they are able to learn more and accumulate more, you can put more on their plate and trust them to do other things.
I love it. And you got to be smart about it. You want to put these guys in a position to be successful, right? And that's not just garbage time. You need to put them in, at other times if you want them to be ready for next year. You can't go year to year and have a bunch of green guys going into the start of the season. You have to give them something, whether it's substantial special teams play, defensive play, offensive play, whatever the case may be. But you have to be deliberate about it, and you have to do it with intelligence.
Right. So the matchups have been announced for the inaugural ACC-SEC men's and women's basketball challenge this upcoming season. Notre Dame men are going to play at South Carolina November 28th. The women are going to play at Tennessee the following day. What do you think of these matchups, Vince?
I missed the ACC Big Ten challenge. I'm not going to lie. The SEC thing is a little weird for me. I'm not used to it by any stretch of the imagination. From the men's side, I don't know anything about this men's team, and I'm talking about Notre Dame. Like, we don't know what these guys are going to look like. So I don't know what that matchup looks like. You know what I mean? And so when I saw the men's matchup, I was like, okay, whatever. I don't, it's not like I'm going to travel down to South Carolina to watch the game. So, it doesn't really do anything for me, so to speak, right? And I don't know. As far as the women are concerned, I have a lot of expectations for the women, right? And when I think of the Tennessee women's program, I think of the 90s. I don't think they're that anymore, if I'm not mistaken, right? They're not the 90s Tennessee, what they used to be under Pat Summitt.
They went to the Sweet 16 last year, but they're not going to Final Fours like they used to. Yep.
Okay. So it'll be a good matchup, one that Notre Dame should win. So, okay, cool. Yeah, it's a clash of two big brands in the women's game. So I think that part's cool. I do think that part's cool. That would be good. But I think Notre Dame wins that game, and they probably should win it by double digits.
And probably the reason they didn't get South Carolina as well is because they're already playing South Carolina in the game in Paris to start off the season.
And that's a massive matchup. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, because that's like, with this, I do like some of this newness because we will start to see some new opponents for both the men and the women because of this. Like you said, you missed the ACC Big Ten. Well, how many more times did we need to see Notre Dame against Michigan State or Notre Dame against Illinois? It's like we saw those.
That was the best game of the year last year was Notre Dame, Michigan State. What? Come on, man.
Yeah, that's very true. But it's like I do like the new, and I think that they'll definitely, like on the women's side, they'll definitely capitalize on Notre Dame versus South Carolina, Notre Dame versus Tennessee, and whoever. The teams end up, being at the top of the conference over the next few years. If we start to see some newcomers, they will capitalize on that as much as possible. But yeah, I mean, it's like this will be the 31st meeting between the Notre Dame and Tennessee women, and the Irish have won 8 out of the last 10 matchups between the two. And on the men's side, it'll be the 16th time, but they haven't played since 1984. So again, it'll be kind of cool to see some newness, like
new blood.
SEC basketball, whatever. But where's Notre Dame right now? Like we got to build it back up again. So
yeah, they're nowhere is where they are. So they are literally an enigma wrapped in a question mark or whatever the phrase is, right? I mean, you have no idea what you're going to get from Notre Dame basketball men this year. None.
Right. And going back to what we were talking about here just a second ago with, getting the young guys on the field. Where was it? Chi-Town said, sorry, coach, best players should be on the field, blow teams out. There'll be plenty of time to get guys reps in garbage time. And
those aren't real reps though.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, yeah, they'll get out there and they'll be able to play. And I've got no problem with that. Where I'm not talking about like you keep the starters on the field all game if you're blowing guys out. But yeah, it's a lot different. The complexion of the game, the way you call it, all that stuff is different.
And like offensively, you're just handing off and running between the tackles. That's not running the Notre Dame offense. And but many people out there, if Notre Dame's up by 3 or 4 touchdowns, don't want Notre Dame to run their offense. They just want to run the clock and get things over with. That's not giving guys good experience. You and I can run out there. I could run out there and be a wide receiver for Notre Dame when they're handing off the ball and running between the tackles. Because you just kind of jog out there, put your hand on the DB and, whatever, it's junk, that's not getting guys game reps. That's not what that is at all.
Yeah. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Kim Mulkey won the women's basketball national championship at LSU in her second season. Jay Johnson just led LSU baseball to a national championship in his second season. And Brian Kelly is going into his second season now at LSU.
It's going to be another bout of disappointment for the Tiger fans down in the boot is what it's going to be. I'm not predicting Brian Kelly to win a national championship down there. If he gets into even if he gets into the playoff, that would be huge. That would be big. I would be very impressed, honestly, depending on how the season played out and all of that. I just don't see them winning a national championship. And if that's the expectation, which I'm sure it is down there, he's going to fall short.
That schedule just is not an overly tough schedule that they have this year. Like next year, the degree of difficulty goes up. We've talked about what it looks like when you add Texas and Oklahoma and all that stuff. But, I know a lot of people are getting worried. Really the biggest hurdle that LSU has to clear this year, Florida State, Alabama, Texas A&M. Like that's the big three. And they were able to clear 2 out of the 3 last year. But 1 year's success does not, automatically, like, crazy things can happen. There are much higher expectations for Brian Kelly in year 2 after winning the division last year. And we were just talking about basketball, and having these questions back to back made me think of, you remember Frank Martin, the South Carolina basketball coach, who was like so quotable and, all the different stuff. And remember they went to the Final Four, but back in 2017? Well, that was not only the only Final Four that Frank Martin led South Carolina to, it was the only NCAA tournament Frank Martin led South Carolina to. Then he got fired 5 years later, because they went downhill. So, again, there's going to be high expectations for Brian Kelly down there, but just because they had a good year last year, give him credit, because with what he inherited a total mess. They got some key transfers. They won their division last year, but that doesn't automatically mean it's going to happen this year. As we all know, like, duplicating things, especially down there in the SEC, is not an easy task.
Right. So, this is what he signed up for, though. He wanted the SEC, the best of the best, supposedly.
True.
So this is what you wanted. And, he's going to have tough games against Florida State. I think he's got a possibility of having a tough game against Ole Miss. We'll see what our boy, the Lane Train, can do. But then it's Alabama, maybe Florida if they get their ducks in a row, but that's home for LSU. And then, of course, you've got A&M, which is also a home game for LSU. So you're right. Things line up pretty nicely for them. But I can always count on Brian Kelly to screw something up. So that's where I'm at.
See, and that's what you got going for this way. You can't expect anything, right?
Yep.
So the NCAA has made some changes to the National Letter of Intent system. Players can now get an immediate release if they request it due to a head coaching change. They can also leave their school without penalty if they leave after 1 academic semester. Do you buy or sell these changes?
So leave without penalty. Can you explain that to me? Because they can always leave without penalty.
The old penalty was loss of a season of competition and a required 1 year of enrollment at the school the player transferred to if the school that you originally committed to does not release your NLI.
But kids are transferring all the time. I don't understand, and they get immediate eligibility. So I feel like that I have no problem with getting out of the NLI if there's a coaching change. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I think that should have happened a long time ago.
Right.
The transferring after 1 academic semester, if a guy is a June enrollee and 1 academic semester is a whole first season, guys transfer after the whole first season all the time.
I don't know.
And they don't have to sit out. You know what I mean?
So I'm a little confused by the wording as well. Yeah. But the bigger one is, I guess, basically, if you're an incoming guy, you haven't played there yet, you've signed a national letter of intent, but there's a head coaching change, then you can leave without penalty.
Love that.
Basically.
I love it.
You can transfer without penalty. I've got no problem with that.
Yep. I have no problem with that.
Thing. Yeah. All right. Couple of other questions here. I guess I've got here. Derek, with Taylor Swift getting $8,000 for tickets, what musical artist or group would you pay the most to see?
Well,
probably asking the wrong person in Vince.
Yeah, I was just going to say, first of all, I do know that Taylor Swift is not getting $8,000 for all the tickets that are in the stadium. the VIP ones and things like that, sure. But you could say that about a lot of groups out there. So, but whatever. I would not pay a dime to see anybody. So that this question does not work for me in any way. So you are the music guy, so I will throw it to you. That's this.
All right.
Throw it to you.
There's really only two for me, and I saw Tommy Guns ask this question as well. Just noticed the tattoo on Sean's arm. That is Thunder Road. That is a Bruce Springsteen song, and Springsteen would be at the top. My wife shelled out a lot of money for Christmas for us to go to the concert back in Cleveland a couple months back. Springsteen and Foo Fighters. That would be it. Those would be the two at the top of my list. So
nice.
Yeah.
There's music I love to listen to and things of that nature, but I'm just not not a music guy. I am an old man when it comes to that kind of stuff. We got tickets.
Very true.
We got tickets to go see a country artist recently last summer, and I mistakenly bought tickets in the pit. Now, when I've gone to see like plays or musicals, things like that, pit seats are good. That means you're literally sitting where the normal people that play the music are, like the pit. Like you're up front. It's a good seat right there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, apparently concerts, that's not the case. You have to stand up and you're literally in a pit of people.
That's right.
It was horrible. It was horrible. I hated every second of it.
I did that a couple times. The biggest pit when I was in Germany, we saw REM, and now this has been like 30 years ago, and it was like you start moving around, and you're like it wasn't like a total mosh, but
no, it wasn't a mosh pit or anything.
There's a crush of humanity, and
yes,
let's put it that way.
And if you move, you lose your spot, and then of course you and I are vertically challenged, and no shocker, there's like a 6'5" guy like standing right in front of me. It was not enjoyable at all.
Friend of mine who I would go to the concerts with, there was kind of a group of us, but one of them was like, we had to get there early. So like for that one in particular, we were like probably, 3 people away from the stage, that kind of thing. We saw,
nice.
I think it was the same place, Living Color. Remember them, like Cult of Personality, that song? We saw them as well. And it was like, same deal, really close, that kind of thing. Like that was when Corey Glover was wearing, you remember like the bodysuit? Like if you ever saw that video, you're kind of young. So yeah, you might Google Living Color Cult of Personality, the bodysuit that Corey Glover, the lead singer, wore. He was like, it was sweaty and he was wearing the body, like the surfer bodysuit kind of thing. Yeah.
I'm looking it up.
One more question tonight, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay. What do we got?
Levi's 501 jeans turns 150 this year. Have you ever been a 501's jeans guy?
No. I have never been a name brand anything guy. Because that, again.
So you've never worn Levi's?
Maybe on accident.
Okay.
No, I've never purposely bought a pair of jeans for the brand. I buy the jeans that are on sale, my buddy. I don't even know what I'm wearing. I'm wearing jeans right now. I have no idea what the brand is. It's whatever my wife bought me.
I believe it.
Yeah.
So all your name brand is like the uppers, not the lowers.
And it's all free.
It's very true. That's what I was 501, like 501s are the shrink to fits, and again, I guess you wouldn't even know what it is since you've never been like all through like high school.
Yeah.
Basically. That's basically all I owned was 501s. And then, they were like the button fly. And then, like at some point the crotch would rip out and all that kind of stuff. And then my father-in-law had this scam. Apparently Levi's had some kind of guarantee that I didn't know about back in high school, but like if they ripped, there was like a lifetime guarantee. You could mail them
What?
in and they send you a new pair. Yeah. So maybe you should start buying Levi's and do that because yeah. So they would like mail them in and like they would mail them in. And so my mother-in-law, like would mail them in there, and then he'd have another pair that would rip, and my wife would mail them in for him because you only get like so many pairs or something like that, I guess. But yeah, that used to be all we wore was the good old 501s.
See, and the other problem was when I was in high school, and grade school, we had dress code, no jeans. So I didn't have a whole lot of jeans.
You went to Catholic school. I forgot about that.
You had to pay to wear jeans at my school, and it was like once every couple of months. It's a jeans day. So my jeans didn't get a whole lot of workout,
Interesting.
I was a Dockers guy. I was wearing my Dockers.
Well, again, I've got a few other questions that we're not going to use today, but I'm going to save them up because I like some of them and with rapid fire over the next couple of days. By the way, got an Alabama reporter who's going to join me tomorrow. Nice. And we'll talk about our old friends Tommy Rees and Tyler Buckner.
Oh, that's right.
As well as some other Alabama outlook for Nick Saban and all that.
Oh boy,
good stuff.
So I'm interested to hear what he has to say about the quarterback race.
Yeah, and that's what I want to. One of the things that I want to talk to him about is where Tyler Buckner stands in that quarterback race. So we're going to do that on tomorrow's show at 6:00, and then Jesse will be in after that for rapid fire as well. So
I got to remember the bell for Friday. Friday.
Bring it. 3-man. Got to have the bell. All right. Appreciate it. Great questions once again on today's show. And look forward to more tomorrow. Again, join us 6:00 live. Alabama. Mark Heim will be Alabama reporter. Mark Heim will be joining us. So we will talk to you then. Smash the like button on your way out. And of course, subscribe, rate, and review. And we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.